Okay, thank you. This is the Data Cloud for Admin session. My name is Skip Sauls. I'll be the sole presenter today. Ricky, my co-presenter, had to return home to Europe on a family emergency, so I'm going to be doing all the singing and dancing here, so bear with me as I try to navigate all of it. So I'm sure you've seen this many times today. I'm going to show you a few things that are coming in the upcoming release in Winter 24, but please don't make any of your purchase decisions based on this. And please feel free to ask us more questions and talk to your sales account team or your account team, partner account team, for that matter, if you want to work with Data Cloud. So you've probably been thanked many times. I want to thank you, the admins who are here. In fact, let's see a show of hands. Who here is an admin as your kind of daily role? Okay, quite a few. Who is a developer? And who is a admin-developer, I think they say sometimes, or an admin/developer? Okay, cool. And in fact, if you've been doing Salesforce for any amount of time, you're probably going to be a developer of sorts, even if you're not in there writing low-level, Apex and that sort of thing. My background is in the Salesforce platform. I started here a decade ago as product manager for Visualforce and what we called Aura at the time. And that was originally the original Lightning components. And then I worked on the analytics cloud for several years on what was known as Wave and Einstein Analytics, CRM Analytics, and it's now part of the Tableau family. And I've been on Data Cloud now for a little over a year, and I'm responsible for what's called the Data Cloud ecosystem. So I work with our partners, Alliances partners, i.e. SIs, and then our App Exchange partners, ISVs and OEMs. And we work on things like the developer experience, the admin experience. So what do you do for your setup tools? What do you do for packaging? And there's a lot of really cool stuff coming out for Data Cloud. We're trying to make sure it fits in perfectly into the way you operate with your Salesforce orgs. Again, that's kind of repetitive. Okay, so what do we want to do today? We want to show you a bit about how you can leverage Data Cloud and, importantly, bring it to the CRM experience, so bring it out to your users. There's a lot of really amazing things in Data Cloud. I'm going to show you a few of the tools today, but this is not a tutorial on how to build everything in Data Cloud. We're rather going to focus on a few ways that you can take that data and easily surface it into your standard forms and fields and that sort of thing. Lightning pages, it's all the standard things you might expect, as well as work with things like flows. We want to show you how you can leverage this data and use it in your standard Salesforce day-to-day operations. So I don't know if you've seen this slide before. It's kind of a build slide. And the point here is there's a lot of data out there. And there's various numbers floating around, but I think there's something like over 1,000 different apps that most companies have inside of their bubble, if you want to think of it that way. So all the apps that people are using on the web, the mobile apps, the classic apps that run on desktops and laptops and that sort of thing. And then there's all the various clouds that you're subscribed to. So there's just lots and lots of data. And sometimes it's hard to make sense of it. And you know this because you yourselves are trying to navigate this as an admin or developer, and your users try to navigate this. If you have to send them to multiple places to do things, it can really be a productivity drain. And I'm very Salesforce-centric, obviously. I like it when we can stay inside of Salesforce. We can do things that way, and it feels like what I would call the normal Salesforce motion. So your users are very comfortable with it, they're familiar with it. And importantly, you as admins can do your work where you're used to it, inside of setup, inside of Lightning pages and that sort of thing. And you're not going to some external system to do lots of the setup. So all this data can be very interesting, but also very confusing. And a lot of it is duplicative. There's duplicate addresses. There's duplicate accounts. And a lot of what Data Cloud does is it can help you make sense of that. It can help you take all that disparate data and turn it into something that's more manageable. And the really cool thing about it is it does so in a way that you can leverage it in a single place. And this is important because a lot of you have been using Salesforce and have used the various clouds, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Analytics, Industry Clouds, and so forth. And while they're all very interesting, if you have multiple apps and multiple orgs, sometimes it's really hard to make sense of it all. You're going org over here, and you've got users working on this, users over here, and you say, I need to migrate data between those. And it's hard sometimes to say, find that single place where I want to operate on the data. So part of the vision of Data Cloud is to make that much easier to do, give you the so-called single source of truth, And this is true both for you as an admin and as an end user. So it's something that's much easier for you to manage. It'll take time for us to move all the various Salesforce apps and platforms and stuff to use Data Cloud, but that's the vision, is to move everybody in that direction, and importantly, make it so that when you operate on things in the future, it'll become easier for you to bring data in and make some sense of it. So you've probably seen this slide in other sessions, but we kind of talk about it going from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And you have a lot of different things you want to integrate into your apps. And obviously the Salesforce, Customer 360 is very popular. You have some of the big clouds. You have things like various data warehouses and data lakes. There's a ton of things people want. And because Salesforce is very flexible and it's in a lot of places, people will sometimes say to us, I need to bring in something that's not necessarily as standardized. It's not all in Salesforce already. And then we have a way to get to this, which is this second column here, taking it and connecting to something, pull the data in, and put it into the right form. And again, this is key. If you play with a lot of data, you don't really want trashy data inside there. You don't want the whole old garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. So Data Cloud helps you rationalize that data, make sense of it, so it's not just copying things in raw. And then we have, harmonize. Take it and so that you can map the data into things that make sense to you. You as a admin or your users think of things in a way that aren't necessarily mapping to the underlying objects. You have data coming in from other clouds, data from Salesforce, even from different parts of Salesforce. And the idea is to give you a way to say, let's make it rational, and you're not just going in and creating custom objects for everything. You're saying, hey, leave the data in place, use it as is, but I can also get to better versions of that data, if you will. I can get to an object that makes sense to me, makes sense to my company. And then on the far right here, using the single source of truth is where you do the fun stuff. And this gets into things like AI, which is a very hot topic right now. Where do you do your analytics? Where do you run your reports? Where do you do everything with that? And the cool part about this is this is where your apps can start to leverage Data Cloud, and again, go across the different platforms and properties, but also go across different orgs. It's much easier to integrate between there, and the general idea is you would have one Data Cloud instance in your company. You wouldn't have multiple data clouds. And that data can be coming in from Salesforce, coming in from externally. It can be using data lakes, data warehouses, coming in from the web. There's a lot of really cool connectors to bring in things. And then you're running it all in the same place. So we're not going to go through the whole setup process, but I want to let you know that setup is pretty much what you would expect inside of it. You can go into the setup pages. You're basically going to do things like assign permission sets. And there's a button for enabling the Data Cloud. What that does is when you click that, it kicks off some back-end processing, provisions some things, and when it's done, it tells you now you're ready to use Data Cloud, and you can then click into it, and you can see some of the things we do in the demo. This might take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. I'm not sure if how much the variance is, but you'll just wait for it. It's much like some of the other setups you've probably seen when you enabled features inside of Salesforce. I came from CRM Analytics, and it had a very similar process where you say enable CRM Analytics. This is very similar. And then you start using the app, and the app is a Lightning app, so you're using it in place, and then you have additional setup pages, and there's setup in the tree, in the normal setup piece. There's also a Data Cloud setup that you can use if some users need access to it and don't have access to the full setup experience. Okay, so what we're going to do in this demo in a second is talk about how you would use this to help answer some of these questions. I'm not going to read each of these. This is just to kind of illustrate that people aren't going to come to you and say, hey, we need Data Cloud. We need to be using Data Cloud. Hey, when are we going to use Data Cloud? They're going to tell you they've got things they want to do. They want to solve some of these problems, and Data Cloud is ideal for this. It gives you a way to go and work with it in a single point, the single source of truth, and not have to go in and figure out all the different integrations. And again, as much as I love Salesforce, I've seen how hard it can be to move between orgs, to integrate two orgs, and that sort of thing. I've seen how different clouds we have force you to import the data over and over and over again. You're like, well, why do I have to import it over here when I've already got it over here? Well, Data Cloud helps with that, so it makes it easier. Okay, so we're going to demonstrate several things here, and I know I've got just a few minutes for it, but I've got a pretty good demo flow for you. We're going to show things that are in Data Cloud itself, This is, again, not a Data Cloud tutorial. There's lots of things you can do to learn more about it. We'll have some links for that in a second. And then we're going to show some of the, what we call CRM enrichment using Data Cloud. So how do I bring that data back in? And that to me is one of the coolest things here, because I want to see how you can surface something like a value, a KPI and that sort of thing. I always tell people, the real value of Salesforce isn't that it's a cool platform to go and play with and do things on. It's the fact that your users have something that they can use and be more productive on. You know how this is as admins. You want your users to be happy, productive. That's how you measure success. Salesforce is just one of the great ways to do that. Okay, so let's flip over to the demo. And I've got them preloaded. We're going to play with some things and hope the networking is fast enough for this. So let's just show you this. Go to Data Cloud Home. And you'll notice that this is a standard Lightning experience. It has your standard navigation with the tabs. And it's in roughly the order you might want to do things, kind of going left to right. But you will jump around at times to get to different parts of it and to do things. And what I want to show you is, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring some data in from outside of it. And I've got Amazon S3 running here. This is my own personal S3. I've created a bucket. We've got some data there. This is transaction data. This is just sample data. It's just kind of a mock. But the idea is I need to bring this in and use it. And I want to use it in various ways through Data Cloud. So I'm not going to have to bring this into core. I don't have to use up core storage. I don't have to use up all the different limits and that sort of thing. I'm doing it on the Data Cloud side. Okay, so first up is data streams. And what do we want to talk about here is this is how I get the data in. And I've got one here for this S3 connector. And just to show you, if you create a new one, it's a standard experience. You've seen this kind of dialogue before inside of Salesforce. You can pick things like marketing clouds, standard CRM connectors, an S3 connector. We're not going to build a new one, but just to kind of show you, it's a very intuitive process. You'll need things like your access keys, bucket names, and that sort of thing, all the stuff you can get. Every one of the connectors may have slightly different connection setup parameters, but they're all basically the form of names, IDs and that sort of thing, security tokens. And then once you're done with it, you have a stream. Let's say just close that here. And we can look at this and see some of the details. We can see when it's last run. We can go in and look at the fields that are being mapped and that sort of thing. So Data Cloud does a lot of really amazing things to help you get the data in and make sense of it. You can go in and manually wire things up, mapping them, if you will, but it will do a lot of work for you. And on the CRM side, we have these amazing things called data kits that do a lot of the work for you. So you actually install the data kit, you let it do its thing, and it creates great versions of the objects in Data Cloud for you without doing a lot of work. Okay, so next up, let's look at the data lake objects. So this is created when the stream runs, so to speak. It makes the connection, it pulls it in. You can set these streams up to be on a schedule. You can set them up to be kind of on demand. There's a lot of different parameters for it. And what we end up with is this data lake object here, a DLO, as you'll hear people call them. And we can look at this and start seeing things like the fields that are coming in. Some of these are generated by Data Cloud itself. Some of them come in from the object. And then we have the mapping. Let's bring this up. And this is, again, a tool that you can take and you can do your own mapping here. You can change things. You'll need to learn how to do this. We don't have time to do a lot of it today, but it's a very easy to use tool for basically saying, make sense of these objects, map the fields to our want to, and you can do them across objects. It's not just one-to-one. Okay, so let's look at the transactions here. And what I want to do now is I want to take this and I want to pull some of that data out, and I'm going to do an operation on it and create a new object, a lifetime value. And we're not going to do a really, really detailed one, but I just want to show you how this works. So let's skip over to here. So I've got a data transform called LTV, lifetime value. And we can do this in numerous ways. You can do calculated insights, you can do data transforms. You have lots of different ways to manipulate data. It is a data cloud and gives you lots of ways to operate on it. I'm just going to show you this because it shows some of the steps. And we have our transactions here, and you can see a preview down at the bottom. We also have our contact information that came in from CRM. Whoops, let's give that a second here. And then we're going to do a mapping right here with LTV by customer ID. Oops, let's maybe need to refresh this entire flow. And you can see here we're going to aggregate the sum price C and customer ID C here. I don't know if you can read that at the bottom there. And then we're going to actually run a little expression here, a transform, to find out if they're a VIP. And this is very straightforward. It basically says if they have more than 1,000, we're going to make them a VIP, setting it to true, and then write this back out to a DLO. So we're writing this back out into Data Cloud. And again, this is all very straightforward. You can do a lot of this by just clicking and dragging. There's no need to go in and do a bunch of low-level type things and write a bunch of queries and so forth. That being said, if you like to, you can write queries, you can get in and you can do things at a lower level, but we try to give you tools for a lot of this to make it simpler. Okay, I know we've got just a few minutes here, but let's go into here. I want to show you a really cool feature that's coming in Winter 24 for how do I get that data back out. So now we have these lists of things for our the transactions, and we have the lifetime value that's been calculated. I now want to surface that back into for my users, for example, on a contact page. So if you notice here, there's some new things inside of the object manager for the contact object, which is the Data Cloud related list and Data Cloud copy field. So for the related list, I'm not going to create the whole thing. I just want to show you the process a bit. So related list. And this is a pretty cool feature here that lets you have it be controlled by the parent permissions. So we don't have to go in and manually set up a new security model. We can actually copy them from, or use them from the original. So let's do this. And then we've got a data space, which is a cool way for you to basically make sense of your data. You can separate this out. It's not a namespace, but it has some of the same concepts of you can restrict things to a data space, and you can have multiple data spaces in your data cloud. We're just using the default. Then you can pick the object, for example, transactions, and then you can give it a name. It's basically like an API name. And then at the end, it's going to generate this, and you can tell it to add it to the contact layout, even to the custom layout. So we're not going to go through and do that because we don't have time. And then I want to show you doing something similar for a copy field. And this is at the field level. So that's a related list that's going to show up. Now you want to do it for just a singular field. And in a similar process, you go through the wizard and you pick the object you want. And we'll look at LTV. And then you can see the fields that you want to bring in. And you can pick whichever ones you'd like. We'll just pick them as an example, and then give it a name, and then save that. And that will start bringing you data back in. Now on the back end, it's going to create things on the data cloud side and on the core side to make all this possible. So it's doing a lot of basically wiring up behind the scenes. Okay, I know we're almost out of time. Let's just show you this on here. So this is a user, which is Hobie Kramer. And if we scroll down, we can see the transactions which came from that S3 bucket, from that file in the S3 bucket. So this is external data coming via Data Cloud into CRM down here at the bottom. This is a really cool dashboard that's using CRM analytics, and it's actually making queries live into the Data Cloud. So this is the live values for LTV and that sort of thing. And if we go to the details page, we can see here that the LTV value has now been exposed here as we put it onto the layout here. So again, a very easy way for you to bring it into it. You don't have to go and do a lot of back-end work and set up a lot of things. You can just go through and pick the things you want, and it works in what I would call the standard Salesforce fashion, so it fits in very nicely with the rest of setup. Okay, we're not going to have time to do flows because we're almost out of time, but there's a way for you to build a flow using it and kick it off from inside of Data Cloud, and I think I've got it loaded here. So it's a Data Cloud triggered flow. It's a standard type there. you start with that, and then you're basically building flows just like you would do today, but you're being passed in the information from Data Cloud, and you can take that and act on it. So as you pass the object through, you can enrich it, you can take it and pull things out, extract it, send emails, whatever you want to. It is just standard Salesforce actions. And that's the key takeaway, is that this is bringing everything into Salesforce in the standard fashion. This is not an alternate reality. This doesn't require you to go externally to do a bunch of things. It's going to be all in Salesforce. It is Salesforce. Data Cloud is the future of Salesforce in my mind. This is how we get everything in the same place. It's what a lot of us have wanted for a long time. So join us on this adventure as we build out this amazing new product. And then finally, let me just bring this back up. I know we're down to the last 19 seconds. So we have a couple of different Trailhead modules. I provided some shortened links here for you. You can find these by just going to Trailhead and searching for them. The one on the right is a module for Data Cloud for admins, and it is part of the Explore Data Cloud trail. So there's an entire trail. There's several custom trails that people have put together, trail mixes and that kind of thing. And we encourage you to reach out and talk to us in the community. Ricky, who's not here, and I both have met many of you in the past at various dreaming events and that sort of thing. And reach out to us through the various channels and let us know what you want to see in Data Cloud. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much and enjoy the rest of Dreamforce.
Thank you for watching. We would love to get your opinion on this content, so please leave us some feedback on the comments section below. If you did like this content, give that like button a tap. And of course, if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the Salesforce Admins YouTube channel. If you want to learn more about being a Salesforce admin in general, head on over to admin.salesforce.com. Thanks again.